Are we live, David? Go. Okay. Hello, everyone. You're watching Mayshad Choice Live. I'm Nazala. I am the founder and CEO of Mayshad Choice, the New York-based company of the Mayshad Group. I'm here today with Jan Dams, our VP Development, and Dr. Risa Ryger, a clinical psychologist and investor in Mayshad Choice.
Hi, everyone. As many of you know, Mayshad Choice produces and moderates a series of rendezvous for smart, generous women to connect, share, and support each other. We're paired with our women's networking platform and Choice, which is a trusted ecosystem that constantly invests in developing personal and professional opportunities for our network. We're thrilled to be launching our digital platform with you all here today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're really very thrilled and honored to have this really very important conversation with Dr. Risa Ryger.
Our guest today, Dr. Risa Ryger, is a clinical psychologist, as I said earlier. She's the founder of 93% Consulting. Dr. Ryger, you will explain to us later what is the meaning of 93% Consulting, and the creator of Dynamic Integrative Psychotherapy. We're going to discuss the impact and solutions to social distancing. And while you're watching on Instagram and on YouTube, you can type your questions to Dr. Ryger for the Q&A session. So we are experiencing a unique moment in time, hit by a global pandemic that forces us to isolate ourselves and our families at a whole new level, never experienced in the recent past. Over the past 2 weeks, we have been hearing and talking about a new concept that might be embedded in our new personality for an uncertain and undefined period of time, social distancing. Dr. Ryger, what can you say about social distancing?
Well, the first word that comes to mind about social distancing is change, and that everything has changed. Everything has changed from how we connect together, how we socialize, how we work, and even how we attempt to buy toilet paper. This is a tremendous time of change. And one of the components of social isolation is that it prevents us from having touch, and we need to figure out new ways of being in connection. So this is a time and a challenge of profound change.
1 second, someone says that they lost you, Dr. Ryger.
Oh,
is it Julie? Pause it. No, hold on 1 second. So this is our first live. Can you check there on the live? It is our first live, and just excuse us for any uncertainty, as we are in a time of uncertainties. We're trying to get Dr. Ryger back on the Skype conversation. Okay, so we just need to keep going. All right. Sorry, Dr. Ryger, we can continue talking.
okay. Where would you like to continue?
So social distancing, as you said, is something that is changing everything in our behavior, from our way to socialize, to our way to consume, to our way to think of products that we thought were granted for us, and that we are no longer certain to have. And so what would you continue saying about this? How is this going to impact us and change our continuous behavior?
Well, this is a time of challenge, and this is a time that we're able to work through our feelings about uncertainty. Now, in the challenge space that we are at the moment, including this social isolation, and here we are, the three of us, we're exactly the example, as we are attempting, and we're trying, we're succeeding, we're fumbling, we're all in giving this a try. And so this is a time when we look inside of ourselves and figure out how we're going to cope. Now, one of the big issues that we're confronted with, since we are in this time of profound change, it's like a tsunami of change. It's not a change where we make a decision and we decide, well, we're going to give this a try or we're going to give that a try, but it's a change that has come upon us. And we really don't have any choice in how much change we can deal with. It's all here and it's all now. Now, one of the pieces is that as women, we're looked to often as fixers. We're the ones who make it better. We're the ones who can find the unfindable. We're the ones who know where things are in the refrigerator. and we're the ones who make it better. And in ways, we are at a loss because we can't make the situation better. There's only so much that we can do. And so part of our challenge is to become more aware of what we can control and what is out of our control.
So are you talking about understanding that we cannot, as women, be in control of every single details of our life?
Well, not only not be in control in every decision, details of our lives, but really how we're able to respond not only for ourselves, but for other people in our lives. And that's been a point of self-definition. And so when we're at this interface and this crossroads, of tremendous uncertainty, how do we find within ourselves our own internal place of steadiness?
Mm-hmm. And Risa, continuing that point as well, how do we do that? We talk a lot about collectively within the Mayshad community, how do we all show up on a day-to-day basis within the normal setting of the world, right? And now that we're going through this extreme moment in time of disruption, we need to show up for ourselves and for others now every single day, even if it's within the household, right? And so how do we find that strength? First of all, how do we acknowledge that what's happening, it's okay to feel what we feel. And then how do we step into our own grounded self to be able to show up for ourselves and for each other in even more powerful ways than what we're able to do in the past?
Well, if we think about feelings, we talk about good feelings, we talk about bad feelings. And at this moment, I think it really behooves us to think about feelings as kind of a rainbow of feelings. And so that in a rainbow, you're not going to get rid of orange instead of yellow. That we have a whole range of feelings and that this is a time to experience our feelings courageously. And we need to be able to identify what it is that we are feeling, whatever it may be. And whether we're feeling fearfulness, whether we're feeling a moment of levity, and whether we're in tears at times, whatever that is, that we allow ourselves the space to really experience it. Now, with experiencing it, it doesn't mean that we are stuck in that space forever, because there are people and that ground to stand on. Because to your point, Jan, when we are identifying what's going on inside of ourselves and then we deal with other people in our lives, we're really able to do that from a point of true authenticity. Because if we're not authentic with our communication, with our friends, with our children, with our partners, that they're going to know that, and it's going to frighten them even more because they're going to know it's not real, that we're not speaking, we're not coming from a place of credibility and authenticity.
We totally agree, Dr. Ryger, and we have definitely been all in a emotional roller coaster for the past weeks, and it has been evolving, changing, and one of the feelings that also comes is a feeling of paranoia, where we think that we have the virus, and that was just me, ending my weekend yesterday, where I was really good over the weekend, but like 3 days earlier, I thought that I was having signs of the virus, and then it went off, and then had an amazing weekend, and then yesterday, like again, like feeling, and so, and today. Back negative, and one on 10 get tested positive. So how do you recommend us to deal with this global paranoia of feeling that anxiety of having something?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first piece of that, Neza, is really to just identify it. Pardon me, and really identify that this is a worry. Yeah, and to also take into account that there is a paranoia and that it's reasonable, that this is something that's reasonable to feel at this point. And it doesn't mean that you're going to keep feeling that you have your moment. I mean, we have something, I call it our reflex, right? We are who we are before the pandemic. So we each have different propensities, right? Some of us are like, it's not such a big deal. Others of us, with every cough, it's our own, or sneeze, it's our own special moment. And so we are who we are before the pandemic, and we need to keep that in mind. Now, just because we have that reflex of, oh my God, something terrible is happening to me, it doesn't mean that when we have the reflex that we need to stay on that path. We can have a reflex, and I think a lot of people get stuck and get overwhelmed is that when they have the reflex of like, oh my gosh, I must have this, right? I just coughed, or I wiped my nose, or whatever that is. I mean, obviously there are more serious symptoms than that, but that you call it out and you go, there it is. That's my reflex. And once you can identify that that's your reflex, at that point, you can't control your reflex. So let's not be concerned, overly concerned about the reflex. But it is after the reflex that you have choices about how you want to deal with it, how you want to address it, how you want to respond, and how you get to check in with yourself, kind of knowing, and then be able to be more directive and discerning about how you want to respond.
Risa, it's interesting what you're saying about checking in with yourself on a regular basis. Many of us have children of various ages, whether they're young, still at home in school, or kids that are in college or graduate from college. But this is also a very special moment in time for them as well. And so how do you suggest checking in with them, no matter if they're with you at home or away, to ensure that you're keeping the consistency in your communications and connectivity with them as well?
Absolutely. That's so paramount. I mean, we're built for connection. We're social beings. We have social brains, and we're looking for connection. So how to do that? Clearly there are ways like, texting and going on FaceTime and checking in and seeing how everyone is. And what's also important is that not every single conversation has to be direly serious. And that even though we're and frenzy, that we can still laugh together. We can still make a video of cooking something that could be, and that everybody gets to laugh because we really don't do a very good job at that. Or that we play a song and we dance or we sing together. That there's ways of holding on to who we are in our relationships, and that catching up, connecting up, having some sort of virtual coffee or tea or cocktail mocktail hour, and that we can, put on your scarf with whatever you've been wearing all week, and that that we allow ourselves to have the lightness and the silliness of what humanity is about, along with very serious concerns and deep caring. And so we don't have to confuse having levity and laughing, which, by the way, is really good for your immune system,
Sure.
with not taking this seriously.
Dr. Ryger, your input is so important to us, because I think that in those times of social distancing, isolation, human crisis, we realize that our biggest asset when the whole economical world is frozen, it's our psychology. This is the body that we have in us, that keeps us going, and that will prepare us to the future, because we are in a reality where we are staying at home. We have to do it. We have to do it to stop this pandemic. And so the question is, how strong are we, and can we be in accepting this situation and preparing for what is coming up next? So in this global crisis, at Mayshad Choice, we have to think on how to continue as a team, as a business that is out there, but most importantly, how can we support the women from our network? We used to create gathering events where we put 15 more women in the same room. So clearly this is not something that we can do now. We have shifted to this digital content, which was anyway embedded in the vision and the values of Mayshad. But how can we support the women from our network? Do you have any advices there?
Yes. First of all, as women in community, and if we want to call it, I mean, this isn't the time of us and them. This is a time of we.
Totally.
And here we are, and as we may wish, this is our opportunity to be together in sisterhood. Mm-hmm. And we get to define what that looks like. And we get to be, as part of Mayshad, as individuals, who do we check in with? If we know that there's someone who's living alone, how do we make extra effort to check in with someone to see how they're doing? One of the most profound experiences in being a human being and being in the world is being seen and being cared about. Mm-hmm. And sadly, there are people who don't even have one person in their lives who see them, who have them in their minds, hold them in their minds, and care. And so both on an individual basis, we reach out to people. We may reach out to people that we haven't connected with in a very long time. This is not the time to stand on ceremony. This is not the time to stand on, oh, I thought you gave me a look the last time we were at some event together. This is not the time for that. This is the time to be really who we are in our hearts, and be able to move forward in connection. And whether it's what we're doing right now, whether it's reaching out individually, setting schedules for ourselves, which can be very, very grounded. And I just want to make one comment about that. Setting schedules for ourselves so that we have some structure, we can veer from it, but we can have some structure, and that can be grounding, and we can support other women with some advice about, have you tried this, or this is what I've tried, and sharing what we figured out or what hasn't worked well, and having an orientation of humor. And I think that, which is important, and has its moments, and of course doesn't have its moments, but that also it is not necessarily the time that we decide to take on our superhuman goals. This doesn't have to be the time that we work to have the fantasy body of the last, 10 years, and that's what we're putting in front of us. This isn't necessarily the time where, if I don't write my, I'm going to get the Pulitzer Prize on this work, or I'm going to read the 1,000 books that I've had in mind to do. We also don't have to do that. We don't have to be this overdoing, overpressuring ourselves. And then when we don't succeed because we take on this, a fantasy perfectionistic task, that we then feel bad and we feel that we have not succeeded. And so we don't have to be there or there, but to ground yourself, know yourself, put some structure, reach out. If you're not hearing from someone, you be the person to reach out. Don't stand on ceremony. If there's people to connect with, be that person. Be that person. Take that step forward. When we take that step forward, it really helps us to feel better and create more community. And it can be really kind of drip by drip, text by text, that it starts to form more connectedness. This doesn't all happen at once. It can't. This is all new for us.
It's interesting because at Mayshad, we talk a lot about how we're bringing the humanity back to social media. And Neza and Risa and all of us have talked a lot about just how much oversaturation there is in the digital space. And Risa, I know that you've talked in the past about how the clients that you have often feel so much more stress and anxiety today than ever before any of this happened, right? And a large part of that was things ranging from FOMO to cyberbullying to whatever the issue was. But is it that you're finding now, and I know that it's probably too early to determine this, but is now a moment in time that we could redefine exactly what social media means to us and what digital content means to us, and actually find more connection and more humanity, because it becomes the primary way by which we're all going to be communicating, at least for the short term?
Yes, that we don't have to go into social shaming. We don't have to go into, if you're not at this party, you're just not where it is. You are so missing out. And that we tend to, people often tend to just show their best moments, not when their hair isn't combed or something awful has happened. And so to really get a grip, and to also to be able to, although these experiences and the reason for it is terribly unfortunate, that we need each other. We need each other. I mean, to be able to go at some point in time and be able to see your friend, and at some point be able to give your friend a hug. What it will be like to not have a virtual dinner.
I think as sad as this time is, it's also anchoring us in the true value that we might have lost over the past decade, and talking about bringing back humanity to social media. There was a lot of like fake interactions happening through social media, and fake interactions happening even in real life, and when we started this crisis and we decided to keep going on with our event, but there is no kissing, no hugging, no handshaking, I just felt that, you know what, like we'll have to put more efforts in expressing our true feelings, because through, like a kiss and a hug, it's like we would just make it feel like, hey, there is this warmth in our feeling, and then, there is the backstabbing right behind and the gossip, and so I think that definitely this time will unveil the unveiled. It's bursting a bubble, a social bubble, and we need to definitely become more authentic in our interaction, more true to other people. And at Mayshad, we really promote the fact that when you're embedded in building your life, and God knows how hard it is, you're not that type of person who's just focused on trying to put others down, and you're just building your life, you're understanding the value of having other people helping you build that life, you're understanding the value of creating an interaction that is balanced, where you give and receive, not you give and take, but you receive in the interaction. And so I think this time, this social distancing is also making us realize that we were somehow in the wrong path with all of our thousands of people and hundreds of thousands that we can have on social media without really truly being connected to people.
Yes. And also, in terms of being connected with people, it also gives us more of an opportunity to really connect with ourselves. And it gives us a chance to wonder about, have there been parts of ourselves that we've banished? Or have there been parts of ourselves that we've been shamed about, and we've let them go, we've put them away, they are, for all intents and purposes, they are offline for us. Mm-hmm. And so, it's kind of like a car that keeps going down the road. Well, your fender can fall off, or your mirror can go, or you can lose a hubcap. And we can keep dropping pieces of ourselves as we go down the road of life, either from communications that we've heard or being own those pieces of ourselves, because it may be that what we have banished or what we were told was unacceptable may it be exactly what we need right now to help get us through. So this is a great time, if possible, to start taking a look and see what parts of yourself have you put offline. Even you may not even realize it because it's become so normative, and to see if you can pull that out and start bringing all of who you are online. Because what was sent away 10 years ago, you're in a different spot now. Mm-hmm. And it may be just what you need to help you get through this. So own it. Own who you are. Stand in your shoes, whether they're flats, kitten heels, or spike heels.
Risa, it's interesting because I'm sure that if we don't already, all of us know someone who's been critically impacted by coronavirus. We will very soon, right? Well, all the projections show that we're not yet at the peak. And so for those of us who have family members far away where we can't visit, and maybe we do FaceTime, but there's still the feeling of the disconnection there. or for friends or colleagues or coworkers who actually have become sick with it. What can we do in addition to what we've talked about here, but are there other things that we can do to help provide a sense of comfort to their own emotional or physical health, and then also at the same time keep us healthy as well in the sense of how we think about the connectivity between mind, body, spirit in the work that you do?
Yes, you can, if you wish. I mean, we can't do what would feel natural,
Right,
which would be
right,
to show up.
right.
That's what feels natural is we show up. We bring them food. You can order food actually, if that's of help, if that would be helpful to that person, and have something delivered, if that's within the realm of what's possible, for them and where their comfort level is. You can send something over. You can make a video for them. You can put together some sort of playlist. You could send them a link to something that is meaningful to them. You can make, if you have children, make a card, write something, and just take a picture of it and send it. And connect in those kinds of ways. Even if you can't get it to them, to be thought about, to make effort in someone's direction is profoundly important. To have someone feel felt, to have someone know that out of sight is not out of mind, and that we just can't do it in the ways that we have, but we can't equate physical distance with not having the possibility of having impact. We can have profound impact and have the impact be extraordinarily meaningful without showing up physically.
Those are wonderful, wonderful, very heart-touching suggestions, Risa. We have a lot of questions coming in, I think, right, Neza, from our viewers. Should we ask some questions?
Yes.
All right, here's one from our audience. What are some tips for navigating the house when suddenly both spouses and even the kids are at home at the same time?
Okay. Well, it's important to have a family schedule. And scheduling, especially for children and especially for adults, is really important. And so that there's some form of structure. I mean, it doesn't have to be to the minute, but there is a structure and there are expectations. It can also be that depending on what your quarters are like, what where you're living, that maybe that whoever is living, that one member gets to be in a room by themselves for a little while. And I'm really quite serious about this, and to have some alone time to connect, to have your own moments, to put your thoughts together, to not have to be in continual interaction, as a way of being able to bring more of yourself when you are in interaction, so that you can bring more presence. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having everyone be in some sort of room together and have one person, whether it's one of the parents, the caregivers, or one of the children who might need a little alone space, a little individual space. And regardless, and even if your space is very tight, even if someone's in the bathroom by themselves or taking a bath, that we circulate space and allow for people to have some downtime. That's one thing. Another thing is that it's an opportunity for people to work together as a family and to have certain kinds of chores and responsibilities. Because, with the high percentage of working moms and then working moms at home, which means it's exponential, the amounts of tasks, that you also don't have to be the only person who's gone to and asked the question, what are we having for lunch? Or what are we having for dinner? that there can be more input, and it doesn't have to be just all eyes on you.
This is a really interesting question. Assuming that this too shall pass, how do we sustain the good that has emerged in these very trying times?
That is an individual commitment. And you can take a moment with yourself, it doesn't have to be now or at some point, and take a look and see something in you that you really like that has emerged more. And then you can have an internal commitment to keep showing up that way. You can do that alone. You can do that with yourself. You can do that with family members. You can do that with your friends, and create some kind of a commitment, an intention, but an intention that's followed through with some form of action. Because to just intend and to not enact is not enough. We need to move from intention to action.
It's interesting, Risa, because so many of our conversations have focused around, so when all this is said and done, what as a culture or what as a society do we take away from this? And is it that the environment's going to come back healthier because there are less cars on the road? Or is it that our political structure will become figured out, or et cetera, et cetera? But I like what you just said now about the responsibility that we each have as individuals to really shift and hold what becomes true to us and important to us during this time period. And then for each of us to take the responsibility to actually then actionize on that after the fact when we're all back to quote unquote normal.
Because no one can take that away from us. That there no one can take that away from us, and no one can stop us from that, and from being true to who we are, and really being able to find a way of being that.
Do we have time for more questions?
Yeah.
This is a good one as well. And we touched upon some of these components, but other ideas for how to stay connected with friends while maintaining social distance, particularly when those friends are used to being very physical with each other in social settings, such as restaurants and bars and happy hours and et cetera, et cetera.
One way, if that's the mode that people have interacted in, and that's what friendship looks like, right? Because even with little children play in certain ways with each other, right? And they'll play with one friend in one way, they'll play with another friend in a different kind of way. So know how you play with your own friends. And if the way you play with your friends, if the way that you interact with your friends is around a meal, you can send, depending on what you can find in the supermarkets at this time, but send around, if it's been around food, send around a recipe, and you can all, each of you make it, and you can have a virtual dinner together and eat the same food. That's one way of doing it. If you'd like to watch the movies together, sit down, make some popcorn, and have a commentary going. Send videos to each other. But whatever it is that has been important for you, there are some people for whom prayer is very important. And you can set a time for you and your friends to pray in whatever form that may look like. If you're meditators, and that's one way that you interact with people who are important to you, this is our opportunity to use technology, and it's extraordinary that we have it. It's our opportunity to use it in a way to keep us connected. So if we meditate and we like to meditate with others, we can use the technology that we have to stay in connection in that way. If we like to exercise with someone, get the same video, or you do the calling out of what you're going to do next and exercise together. So basically, if you can think of it If you can think of it, there's a way of transposing what's meaningful and connective to you in a way that can be done.
We could all go shopping together online.
Well, what we could do,
Shopping
we could go
parties.
shopping online, or we could go through our wardrobes and see what we're not using anymore and have it up for grabs. And
Ooh, I like that idea.
I like that too.
and have a fashion share. And that can be all part of it. Or have someone put on music and have a dance party with your friend.
Thank you, Dr. Ryger. Thank you, Jan. So this was our first live conversation. Yes? Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add. I'd like to add one more. Oh, yes, that as well. But yeah. But I'd like to add a couple of things. One is that we may feel that we really want to be informed, and it's important that you take stock of what your own saturation level is.
Sure.
And being informed doesn't mean that you have to be on your news feed every second.
And being informed doesn't mean that you need to hear the same information 10 times. Because it just takes up the rational part of it, and it goes into the emotional side of building anxiety in you. And
yes,
very good point.
And that there can be an illusion that if you keep staying on top of it, that you're really in control.
Sure.
But if you're connected to your news feed all the time, you're not doing the things that you need to do to really be able to take care of yourself. And one thing that's important to remember is that self-care is not self-indulgence, that we have to take care of ourselves. And that's crucial for any model of health.
Actually, we have a couple of other questions that I think that we haven't touched upon yet. So if we could, are we good for adding a few more?
Sure.
Okay. So here's this is really interesting about just social media, going to our conversation around kind of the noise around social media. Social media is so full of misinformation that it adds to the confusion and stress that so many are experiencing. What can we do to filter out some of what's bombarding us?
Again, this is an opportunity to be selective. This is an opportunity where you can turn off the volume, you can turn off the visual, and you can make decisions and choices for yourself about what you determine to be healthy and useful for you, and still be in connection. We don't have to be so porous that we take everything in, and then we can feel in a state of overwhelm and wonder why we're experiencing more anxiety. Discernment, choice, selectivity, and that can help keep us on a path of steadiness and really have an opportunity to ask ourselves, gosh, do I really want to do that with my time? Is that where I want to have my emotions get hijacked? Do I want to be on that kind of roller coaster and then need to find my own space of solidity again? Because that spot of steadiness, we can be in all different places with our emotions, but we need to periodically come back to our own space of steadiness and feel our feet on the ground.
And this is a beautiful exercise to keep through the next step of our lives. And I think that this is a time of focus, this is a time of priorities, and if we can use this time where we're physically locked to be able to turn down the button when we don't want to be aggressed by an information or an over solicitation, and if we can exercise to take this back to our more busy life, then we would have succeeded something tremendous.
Yes, Yes, and that's something that can be with us for our lifetime.
Yes.
We have one more question. And we talked a lot about different practices that can support us during this time of disruption: meditation, prayer, yoga, Risa, all of the things that you mentioned that we usually do together in person, that we can do collectively in a digital space. But are there other things just for oneself that you would recommend for having to help us come back to our center, come back to our core, come back to really identifying truly at this moment in time, who are we and who do we want to be going forward?
One way that people use, and you certainly have heard about it, is to take a moment in whichever way that you wish, whether you want to talk into Siri or keyboard, or really go back to the kinesthetic aspect of writing, is that you can take this opportunity to jot down your thoughts, your feelings, whatever that may be at the time. It doesn't have to be something that you decide you want to publish. It can be something that you really use for yourself. And write down what it is that you're experiencing, what your thoughts are, and allow yourself the freedom to let it go wherever you wish it to go. That's one thing. Now, something that, if for anybody who has a snow globe, I know this is going to sound, but for anybody who has a snow globe, one of the ways that we can help center ourselves, because when our minds start to go, and we're like dominoes, and this happens, and that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, we can't even see straight. We can't think straight. So if you have a snow globe, I do this with very young children and with older children and with adults. If you have a snow globe, take the snow globe and shake it and sit and wait and watch until you see that last piece of snow fall. Now, there's the metaphor here is that when our minds are like this, we really can't think clearly, and we need to let things settle so that we can see clearly and think clearly. And that can be done individually, that can be done as a family, that can be done with a child who's having a yaya moment. And it helps because it's a way of feeling that you can have some control over where your mind is going, and that you can use this as a way, whether it's a snow globe or something else, to steady yourself. And children will, even young children, will tell you how differently they feel. And if you need to do it again, then you do it again. But that's another way of
image. Definitely makes you realize that in that moment of shaking and chaos, you think that it's always going to stay like this. But then when you let everything settle and when you watch that little piece of snow coming down, then it's like if there was never the shaking before, because everything comes back to that quietness. So thank you so much, Dr. Ryger. Jan, thank you. I think we're done with the questions. In the United States by this pandemic. We are all in quarantine, self-quarantined in our homes. Thank you so much for your input and insight. It's very important. We all need this support, Dr. Ryger. At Mayshad, with the team throughout these entire moments of doubt for the past 2 weeks, all we were focused about was how can we bring value, support, inspiration to the women from our network? How can we not let them down in this moment? So before finishing, we're going to go through this experiential exercise with Dr.
Have a a free gift for everyone who's attending this event. And so if you put put my email up on the feed or any place else that people can see it, and they send me an email.
And if we can't get it up, the email address is Dr. Ryger, that's DrRYGER, at drrisaryger.com, DrRisaryger.com.
Yes, I would love for you to try this and let me know how it works for you. And as Neza has said, we're going to be moving. I want to answer one question that you asked me before. Why 93%?
Yes.
The reason why 93% is because up to 93% of our communication isn't about the words, but it's about everything else that we bring with it. Our body language, our eye connection, our posture, our tone of voice, our authenticity, our credibility, our trust. And that when we integrate and connect these nonverbal components of our communication with our words, we have a communication that speaks with impact, with power, and with authenticity. And so, without further ado, what is this exercise that we're going to be doing? Well, this is experiential. This is for all of us. We have all the equipment that we need. One of the things that we've talked about is how we don't have physical contact at this point for many, many of us. And that physical contact is a tremendous place of comfort for us. And from our youngest days, one of the things that we looked to do was to hold a hand. And many of us are not in the position right now to hold a hand. But this is called holding hands. So what I'd like you to do first is I'd like you to take a moment and to think about someone in your life, whether they're around now, whether they have passed, whoever that may be, whether it's a friend, whether it's, if no one comes to mind, is there a character you saw in a movie? Whoever that may be for you, but note who that is. Have someone in mind. That person who, when you imagine holding hands with that person, that can be a place of comfort and connection for you. All right, so have that person in mind. And now, if you're a righty, hold up your left hand. Okay, well, I'll go this way. And take the index finger of your other hand. And what we're going to do, we're going to start at your pinky. And I'll give you the instruction first. As we go up, we're going to inhale. And as we go down like a ski slope, we're going to exhale. And while we're breathing, we're going to think about that person and holding that person's hand. So just if you want to close your eyes or if you want to look, whatever is comfortable to you, think about this person and just take your time, take an inhale, take a moment, and on the way down, exhale, inhale, and exhale in the speed that works for you. Inhale, exhale, thinking about that person holding your hand. Inhale, exhale, coming and rounding the thumb. Come down to your wrist, and now take it back up the other way. Go up your thumb, inhaling, exhale on your way down. Imagine that it's that person who's going to hold your hand, and you can start to feel their fingers in between your fingers, that it's there for support, it's there for connection, it's there to be that soothing hand and that moment for you that you can always, always find and take for yourself. When you're ready, take your moment and you may open your eyes.
Thank you.
Anyone want to share, or we keep it to our...
Well, I can share. I have thought of my grandfather who passed away when I was pregnant of my first daughter, so 12 years ago, and he was the most important person in my life. I grew up a lot, spending a lot of time with him and my parents, but he was that person that was always there whenever I would get sick, whenever I used to be a tomboy, so I used to fall all the time, and he would take me to the doctor. And he's definitely someone that I have missed a lot over the past 12 years. I was so much blessed that life has given me my children at that time where he had a brain tumor, but he's someone that I miss at different times in my life. And so when we were talking earlier, so I had the secret, Jan, on what the exercise was. So with Risa, with Dr. Ryger, we did it earlier. And yes, when you told me someone that you miss, I'm not totally isolated because I have my two daughters here with me. And but to be able to use this exercise to connect someone who's no longer part of this physical world is an amazing exercise that I'm going to be using over and over.
Okay. Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank you both and the Mayshad team for putting this together, having this opportunity to be in community, because whether we're here for a minute or whether we're here for an hour, we are in community. And thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you so much, Risa.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to finish this live today. And in actually 30 minutes, we're all gathering on Zoom. I hope Julie sent us the link because we're going to have our Mayshad Women in the City, our after work drinks as we have finished our working day. So, Risa, we hope for you to join us on Zoom in 30 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
Continue on your courageous path of self-connection.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you in 30 minutes.
Bye.
Yes.